This presentation is prepared to the conference Consciousness and Physical Reality that take place in April 24. And it is about natural quantum networks, our consciousness, interaction between both, and a little bit about biophysics of these interactions. So I will start with a short introduction. Mostly from, let's say, we had already a lot of presentation to this topic, and just to explain what is the background of all these ideas. So I will start a little bit from historical overview. I mean, I really like this because whatever we do is already present to some extent as a history. We have to learn what is done before. And human history has about 6,000 years of written history. No, in all the 6,000 years, we have almost the same ideas related, for instance, that humans have, as a part of humans is immortal by whatever reason. There's different name for this. It's like Ba or Atema or soul. I mean, completely different. And consciousness can, for instance, exist outside of biological form. I mean, for old cultures, it's really a kind of it's really non-thinkable how they can come to this conclusion. So. All these non-biological consciousnesses, they can interact with each other. They create many different spheres or universe or information fields or other worlds. I mean, different names for this, and we can communicate with this. I mean, other worlds. I mean, this is a little bit strange because all these ideas. I mean, there's only example of these ideas. They exist in different cultures, in different historical regions, in different geographic locations. I mean, cultures sometimes they appear and disappear, and whatever is related to this culture did completely disappear. But this idea, they are extremely stable and extremely persistent. The question is, a visual question is, why? What is the reason why they are so persistent in 6,000 years of the history? So, and people, at least in researchers of last, I think about 200 years, they start to deal exactly with this phenomenology. And some of the idea is that probably we have a process in the physical reality that support that consciousness can exist outside of biological form. I mean, we have received again and again a confirmation from our physical reality. So this is one of the ideas. Of course, is not in any way not a scientific evidence, but we can still use it as a kind of motivation leading us along a specific developmental line. So, what is the current idea to explain all of this? In fact, we assume that there is a kind of network, computational network that exists in the environment, and we have a computational network, neural network in our brain, and both systems can interact in whatever way. Okay, there's a general idea. We have a little bit more, let's say, explored both what kind of network can exist in the environment, and finally, the idea was that the spin networks. Just to give some short explanation, spins is a rotation of elementary particle. For instance, in water, there's a rotation of these two protons. They can rotate in the same direction or in opposite directions. And so we have two isomers, water isomers. It's the same water molecule, but with different spins. And they behave completely different on chemical side. So we have different chemical reactivity. They behave a little bit different in magnetic field, so they can be detected by magnetic resonance tomography. They have, for instance, different viscosity, so different capillary phenomena. And so can be detected by physical instrumentation. But in the same time, they interact on quantum side. For instance, they are involved in entanglement phenomena. And so we have a kind of bridge between quantum and chemical and chemistry. So, and isomers, it's not only in water. We have isomers in hydrogen. We have isomers in methane. We have also different rotation in many different, for instance, electrons in different molecular systems like oxygen, xenon. I mean, there's many systems working and operating, or ferrum 3, for instance, operating on spin phenomena. So from this point of view, we think that this network is a spin network more concretely. And about our brain, again, there is a number of theories. We know, as I give a short overview, we know that brain work on 3 different levels, physical, electrical, and biochemical. And finally, this more close development started about 25 years ago. Penrose-Hameroff theory, saying this wave function here in the microtubes, they can be changed, so brain operating quantum level. Now we have more recent theories, for instance, Fisher theory. Fisher theory says, well, there is a stable molecules, so-called Posner molecules, and with phosphor. And spin of phosphor, they have different spins, also really stable. And there is entanglement between different spins in different places of the brain. And so, as a really recent publication says that the short-term membranes extremely rely on this entanglement effects, for instance, xenon. And then Posner molecules, again, as a phosphor, xenon, they are extremely important for short-term memory, and they work on quantum level. So to conclude, so brain also involves a 4th level quantum level, and so we have in our brain also a quantum network. And so the final hypothesis is here that complexity of our brain is huge. You know, we have about 60 trillion of neuronal connections. And complexity of our brain and complexity of external environmental system, I mean, with this spin effects, I would say to some extent is comparable. And so all this, or at least many unconventional phenomena, can be explained by interaction between brain of one human with the brain of another human. That can be mediated by external network, or even interaction between one brain and this external network. They can explain these unconventional effects. So this is a short introduction. So we work now with this hypothesis. Currently it's extremely good because this involves really a kind of scientific methodology, scientific terminology. And this more or less, explainable on the level so that people can really understand it in the modern terms. So, what we do in this system more exactly. So, this is our experimental part. We started with some interesting hypotheses published a couple of years ago. This one of this publication, this experimental indication of non-classical brain function. What is this idea? What people doing, they measuring MRI, so magnetic resonance imaging in the brain. And just to explain, by MRI, especially in water consisting system, so brain consists by 80% or 90% of water, so they measuring proton density of ortho isomers, because para isomers is non-magnetic, ortho isomers is magnetic, and they discover interesting effect. Here is a time resolution. So it is a spatial resolution, but there's a time resolution, a little bit different. So they continuously measure in the same region these MRI images, and they discover oscillations. And this oscillation, I mean, is very similar to the heartbeat. Well, then everybody say, well, it's not really, I mean, some surprise because heartbeat is everywhere, but not on quantum level. There is no mechanism that can connect, macroscopic phenomena with the spin networks. And then people in this experiment, they discover really something interesting. People who perform this experiment, was in this scanner, they sleep because probably this measurement took a long time, and they sleep. And then this peak was lost. There was no periodical signal in proton density. And then if they awake, then this signal then reconstructed again, they appear again. So then assumption was that first of all this biological network, our biological brain, work as a quantum mediator. And second, this cognitive functionality is a key for this quantum mediation. Now I have a little bit to explain what's a quantum mediation. This is a quite well-known process. If you have, for instance, two entangled particles, this mediation is a process. You can add a new particle to this entangled system. So you receive then finally a system from three entangled particles. So you can understand it in a simple term as a kind of operator increasing your homogeneous network. Currently, there's a lot of publication on this topic. For instance, about communication between spin states and of different molecules. Discussion about classical, non-classical mediator, energy transfer. Like I said, there's a lot of publication. Finally, what I found is really nice discussion that this mediation process can represent a kind of interface between biological system, in particular our biological brain, and this quantum universe. So nevertheless, this quantum mediation is a really huge process. It's an important process, and it seems that our brain is able to entangle external system with some other system, also on a quantum level, and consciousness play a key role. Just to explain this experiment, so we took this. And working with brain and water system is rather difficult, so we little bit reformulate this in terminology, what is more easy for us. As you know, this isomer story, you can measure this in different way. You can measure this in MRI way or in electrochemical way. So in electrochemistry, you're measuring very specific process. So we're measuring CO2 dissolving. This represents a kind of oscillator, quantum oscillator, based on spin conversion. So, in some more simple term, you can think that of a qubit, macroqubit, consisting of molecular ensemble of different spin stage. In some stages, it's homogeneous, in other stages, non-homogeneous. But nevertheless, because of the special location and macroscopic measurements, you can think as a one qubit. And what we do, we in fact program by a cerebral mediator a transfer function between both qubits. So we introduce a gate, logical gate or functional gate, and now by programming this gate, we can explore a dynamic of both systems. So that is the main idea. What's the advantage of this system? First of all, what I think is really important is extremely long-term operation, because they require no energy. So they exist in a normal stage in every natural system. Water is everywhere. A lot of water is in our body, and in this way, we explore a huge number of very different systems, and they are extremely stable. So low switching energy. Here we probably don't need too many energy. Current estimation is about power of 20⁻26 electron volt. So we can use even our consciousness, also extremely low distant interactions for programming. But disadvantage is probably that here we have fluctuations. They destroy this, and we observe these fluctuations. So, but okay, this is a point what we work on. Definitely information principle, because the system can process information. We can put different functionality here. We can change function, change gate, and especially this programming done also both by a physical mediator and by a cerebral mediator. So human consciousness can program the system as well. So this is our main idea of this experiment. We produced two different versions up to now and explore this. In one version, this case one, we use this, as a classical transmitter-receiver system. So one system is a transmitter, so we think it is our transmitter, and another one is our receiver. So we put stimuli here, and we observe what is the response. So in control experiments, there is no stimuli goes not to response. There is no connections, because here our system are completely isolated. They are electromagnetic isolation, optical isolation. They do not interact at all. Here. But after programming, we observe really transfer between stimuli to response. How this programming look like? Here, the people, specifically trained people, who really familiar with this, all these mental processes. And we know, for instance, these Buddhistic monks, if they do a meditation, we immediately see a response. So they really work on electrochemical level, not on thermal level. And they focus their attention on programming this transfer function. There's a long story. I can take a long presentation now to do this and what are results. But shortly, they do this in this way. And finally, so there is a programming, then people, they go away from the room, the system is completely alone, and we put a stimuli, so this optical excitation. We observe what is the response on the receiver side. So then after a while, again stimuli, again response, then again stimuli, again response, and this number of activation cycles. So typically the whole system stops after 3, 4, 5, probably 6 attempts. It stops. This really indicate this fluctuation nature. So this function is slowly destroyed. Then we perform again a programming attempt, then cycle of activation, programming, cycle of activation. This number of programming is repeated as long as we have, let's say, motivation to do this experiment. 1-2 days. For this iterative programming attempts. So anyway, the system is characterized by 2 parameters, number of activation and number of programming cycles. Okay, what are main results here? This typically, this red one is activation on the transmitter side, and the black one is receiver side. We see a clear response between activation and between stimuli and response. So even, for instance, this first attempt, as a first attempt, extremely well visible, in all cases. But what we see, for instance, if we increase to 3 cases, even, for instance, here as well visible, the first one is okay. Second one, probably yes, but the last one is not really visible. So it means that this activation responses, this quality of activation response, they disappear with time, with number of activation attempts, so the cycles. It seems that this function created by cerebral mediator or by a physical mediator, they slowly destroyed, they slowly disappeared, exactly by this fluctuation. And one of active work in this way is to make this transfer function more stable. This is currently a challenge. But we think, we work on this point. Another thing, what we note time, for instance, here we can use, as you select this time between 2 activation attempts, short or long. But there is no difference on the number of attempts. It seems that this quantum system, work not on the physical time, but it work a kind of event time or functional time. So anyway, what we think that network has a different timing than our physical time. So this will not. Okay, this is short about this kind of experiments. The second system is a little bit different. It's a more scientific one. Here, to explain this, I should a little bit, let's say, make an introduction to physical chemistry. Here, we use a process of CO2 dissolving. And by dissolving, first we receive carbonic acid. And carbonic acid is dissolved on several ions. They again dissolve in other ions and bicarbonates. And we finally use electrochemistry to sense this process. The point is here that the whole process is reversible. So it can work in the way increasing ionic content or decreasing ionic content, producing again carbonic acid and CO2. And this generates a kind of chaotic behavior of this electrochemical system. So, and then indeed, if you, for instance, consider different oscillator, chaotic oscillator, they are not connected, not correlated in any way. So correlation function, for instance, Pearson correlation is equal to 0. This little bit, between minus 0 plus 0.5. Like here, but at one moment they became extremely correlated. For instance, here they can be phase correlated or anti-phase correlated, and we see a huge increasement of correlation function. So in this way, we can explore, in fact, this correlation process. Why it's happening, it's unknown, but what we know is a quantum process, because here the idea is that spin conversion, basically here it is, for instance, producing orthoisomer increase electrochemical reactivity, and increasing of electrochemical reactivity mean that all conversion just convert in the same way. So we use this kind of, let's say, interaction between different molecular system, and currently assumption is that there is a kind of physical mediator that creates this process. So this is, let's say, a short explanation. Even if we increase the number of oscillator, we see a correlation, increasing of correlation function, but it is strongly local. So it means it exists only in the part of this network. We don't know what it is. Probably it is a kind of spin-spin interaction or interaction with a new physical fields. It's a relation here to ideas explained by Maria's talk, as in the previous talk. And what we here see, for instance, if we use 6, 8, 10, 12 oscillators, we see increasing of correlation function here for in short terms. This duration of this highly correlated period is short, between, I would say, 2 minutes and 12 minutes. So measure shortly in 10 minutes, more or less, or something like this. And the reason is unknown. So like I said, and we use it in fact to look for new physical interaction, for properly spin-spin interaction. In our laboratory, we explored photon-assisted entanglement, basically, introduced entanglement by means of photonic illumination as a physical mediator. And we also conducted, in parallel to physical experiment, we conducted in the mind system. Mind, just shortly to remind, we developed this system for exploring and training mental interaction, mental capabilities of human operator. We produce and sell this system. There is currently quite popular now. There's a lot of system now in use. There's even in Canada Aquapsi website related to this, training interactions. And what we saw, if we use this as a sensor, this is really quantum network, because we're looking for this, this correlation function. So the correlation function was a sensor for the mind system. So we see in exactly the same way increasing of correlation. So currently our assumption is that we do not see any difference between physical mediator and cerebral mediator. So probably both processes use the same mechanism, physical mechanism. And this, generate a new idea that probably all people have the same tools, innate tools. We all have it already to work with quantum system. So we don't need, we don't need a complex technology to interact with this network. But anyway, we don't see these differences. And again, distant character, there was a lot of experiments about this distant interaction. It seems indeed we all are capable of this distant interaction, even not between brains, but with also this global network. Also this attempt was from New Zealand. It's many thousands kilometers, and extremely well expressed. Just to conclude, because time is running out. To conclude, so we see here evidences that cerebral mediator, also our consciousness, can interact with a quantum network and spin network. But this is not only in this way. We see a number of, for instance, biophysical effects, especially thermal one, because thermal effects are more explored, they're much more easy to measure them. Yeah, and one paper, for instance, this yoga tuma meditation. There's a lot of unexplainable things. For instance, if people make a kind of mental concentration, they have completely different thermodynamic behavior. And this is strange because there is no reason, no explanation why they behave so. We also repeated these experiments, and it seems that they can be explained if we, introduce interaction between biological neural network and water isomer in the brain. So, because they change thermal conditions, thermal capacity, and exactly this can explain this unusual thermal dynamics. So, to generalize, so properly, if we look more in this field, we can explain more and more up to now unexplainable phenomena just by this new kind of interactions. So I think now time to make this little bit about reading. All of this is published. Currently, I mean, there are already some publication in journals. There are 2 papers, also really 23, published as preprint. Now they are in publication process. So you can read and find more details for all of them. So now time for conclusions. A few points. What we really see an active development of quantum consciousness models is now it's not only one models. We have at least 3-4 different developmental lines. Every laboratory, I mean, full of this or another lines. Fisher theory probably is the most useful because this introduced this spin-based model. And we see a huge number of evidences that consciousness indeed operate on quantum level. So more like say quantum, you know, everything is quantum now, but more precisely the spin-based networks. So and these quantum networks, they are explored. The name is tensor quantum networks. In the environment is a natural network. It seems they are capable of running artificial intelligence like computational algorithms, a lot of experiments, and probably they already have a kind of intelligence. So we really interact with extremely intelligent system. Currently, no difference between physical and cerebral quantum mediator. Probably they use the same process. So this has a lot of implications, by the way. And many unconventional phenomena that can be explained by exactly this interactions. This probably, you know, very nice idea that we see a combination now of unconventional science. So they, you know, mainstream go now in all these areas. So probably in the future we will not see a kind of unconventional developments anymore because they will be covered by quantum research. Nice thing is we have a new technologies now in discussions. This is very important because they mean that, for instance, this interface to quantum universe is transcommunication, and another thing is this non-biological immortality. That's also discussed many times in the history. That probably for this immortality story I repeat, in non-biological way, we receive more and more evidences that is possible. So we just transfer our consciousness to this network on the Earth, and probably we will see more and more experiment in this line. So this all for my talk. Then thank you, and see you in the conference.